have spent the last few weeks testing every single Portuguese learning app so that you don't have to, and honestly what I found was pretty surprising. It's not just about which apps are good or bad, it's the fact that some of the most popular apps that you might even have been using do not teach European Portuguese at all. Meanwhile, apps that are genuinely built for European Portuguese are the ones almost nobody starts with. Olá pessoal, I am Liz and I'm a Brit living here in Lisbon. I've been here nearly a decade now and I've been teaching European Portuguese for more than 6 years, so I can confidently tell you which ones are worth your time and which ones you can just delete. Quick note, this video is not sponsored. Everything I say is just my personal opinion as a teacher. One quick thing before we get into these apps, because it ties into all of this, the one area that every single one of these apps falls down is pronunciation. It's not something that any of them focus on anywhere near as much as they should. So I have made you a free European Portuguese pronunciation guide that walks you through the specific sounds that usually trip us English speakers up. It's the very first link in the description. Go and download it now so you have it ready. But now let's talk about the app that is used by hundreds of millions of people. So it's the #1 app that everyone rushes to download when they want to learn a new language, and that is Duolingo. So in my opinion, Duolingo has 2 very big problems. #1 is, of course, it doesn't actually offer European Portuguese at all. It only teaches Brazilian Portuguese, and these are very different in terms of so many things. The pronunciation, the vocabulary, the grammar even. So that alone is a reason big enough to discard it from our list. I do have several videos where I talk about the differences between European and Brazilian Portuguese, so you can check those out next if you are interested. But essentially, I don't want you to set yourself up for failure, because when you get to Portugal, what you are hearing on the streets is going to sound so different to what you've been learning if you've been focusing on Brazilian Portuguese. Now, the second problem is that Duolingo, I don't think it's actually a language learning app. It's more of a glorified game. All of those streaks and rewards are really designed to keep you hooked, like all of those other dopamine machines we have on our phones. So it makes you feel like you're making progress when in reality, all you're doing is collecting vocabulary that may not actually be that useful in your day-to-day life here. So you may well learn sentences like the butterfly is eating the cheese or the horse is driving the car, and they're the kind of sentences that you're literally never going to need. In fact, one of my students told me, I have done Duolingo until I'm blue in the face, but when would I ever need to use the word armadillo? And that sums it up. It's engineered to drive engagement and is genuinely addictive, but engagement is not the same as learning. So the way I see it, yes, it can be good for vocabulary building, basic nouns like apple or bread, but it's definitely not great for grammar. It won't explain why sentences are structured in a certain way, and you'll certainly not get any speaking confidence because all you're doing is tapping a screen and tapping buttons. You're not actually practicing how to hold real conversations. It does now have text-to-speech audio, but it really doesn't mimic the way that real humans talk. So unfortunately, my final verdict is to skip it entirely. For European Portuguese specifically, it's a 0 stars. The second one is Babbel. Now this is another one that many beginners will be happy to just pay for because it offers a more mature learning experience, but it does actually have the same problems as Duolingo. It doesn't have European Portuguese, only Brazilian. For many other language, Babbel can be solid, but for European Portuguese, I would not advise you to spend your money on it because it can't offer you what you came for. Once again, I'm so sorry, it's a 0. Now, at this stage, you might feel like every app is a waste of time, but it's not. The next apps that I am about to show you do teach European Portuguese, and some of them are really great. So let's look at the third app, one of my personal favorites. It's Pimsleur. So first of all, full marks, this app does have European Portuguese, and it's a really interesting concept. There's almost nothing to look at. It's just a voice asking you to say things back to them out loud over and over. So it does work in a really classic old school way. If you ever learned from a tape or a CD when you were at school, I know I'm aging myself, but yes, we had a language learning lab where we could do that at university. Even the way we watched Colin Firth's character learn Portuguese in Love Actually.
Oh meu Deus, estou com dores de estômago. Acho que é das gambas.
So one thing I really like about this app is that it's brilliant at getting your mouth moving and building your speaking confidence early on, which is the exact hurdle that most learners avoid for far too long. And if you know me as a teacher, you'll know that I really focus on speaking practice. It also works offline and screen-free, so you can do this when you go on a walk, when you're at the gym, or when you're doing chores around the house. The lessons are only about 30 minutes long, which again really aligns with my philosophy of language learning, which is that we should be doing little and often, not huge, long, intensive chunks, but building a habit that you can do on repeat daily. It breaks sentences down into bite-sized chunks and gets you to repeat them out loud, building you up from a single syllable to the whole word and then the whole sentence. I also personally think that the voice artists they use are really nice, really clear, and very close to what you will hear on the streets here in Portugal. Now, there are of course a few cons. They do now have an AI voice coach, but unfortunately it isn't great. I did test it by using deliberately bad pronunciation and sending it through, and the response that I got was that it was fantastic, no feedback, which I knew wasn't true. Also, it doesn't actually explain how to make some of the sounds, which can be really tricky, especially if you're an English speaker and there are some sounds that you've literally never had to make before. So with nobody talking you through how to actually physically do this, that can also be really challenging. It doesn't build a huge knowledge of grammar. I would say that this can pretty much get you to a point where you can do very basic things as a tourist when you visit, but it really isn't going to give you an overall picture of how the language works so that you could actually build your own sentences and start to speak off script, for example. That's probably not the place that this is going to take you. It all comes down to what kind of learner you are. So if you're a visual learner, of course, you might find the lack of reading or writing exercises challenging, and the repetition can feel a bit boring at times. It's a little bit like rote learning at school, but again, I think it works really well for language learning as a kind of more traditional approach. So I actually think this is a great way to start speaking early on and to get some initial confidence up. Just don't expect it to take you all the way to actually learning to speak Portuguese. So my final verdict, not bad. 3.5 stars. So before we continue, I just want to say apps are a great way to start building your vocabulary, but there's just one thing they cannot do, and that is give you feedback. So getting the sounds right is what really makes the difference when you're really speaking to a Portuguese person on the street. It's what's going to stop locals from just switching to English the second you open your mouth. And this is exactly where I spend most of my time with my students inside our program. And I get messages like this every week. My students are always thrilled to tell me what a boost of confidence they get when they're out having real conversations without the fear of being misunderstood, and on top of that, actually being complimented on the regular as to how good their Portuguese and their accent is. So to date, no app can train your mouth to hit those specific European Portuguese sounds. So if you are ready to move past that tourist phase and start sounding like a local, you should definitely check out my free 60-minute workshop, Speak Portuguese Like a Pro. I will walk you through the pronunciation secrets, the essential grammar you actually need to make sense of fast spoken Portuguese, and you can find the link in the description to join for free. App number 4 is Memrise. Now this app is very popular and it handles this problem about Brazilian versus European Portuguese perfectly because it has a specific European Portuguese language course. So the way it works is it shows you short clips of real Portuguese people saying phrases in their own accent and at their own speed. So for training your ear to how people genuinely sound, this is really, really valuable, and that's why I recommend it. It does also come with an AI chat partner now, so you can practice speaking to a bot. This is useful, but please remember it's not a real person, so it won't give you an authentic learning experience. Where I think it lacks a little bit is on the grammar. It gives you phrases that are ready-made, which is excellent for just copying, but again, like Pimsleur, it's not great if you want to start building your own sentences. So my favorite aspect is that you really are going to hear real Portuguese accents at a natural speaking speed, not robotic kind of text-to-speech audio. So you should get this app, but keep it for one job, and that is training your ear with the Learn with Locals clips. So again, pretty good rating, 3.5 stars. The next app is LingoClip, and this one is so easy and so fun. It takes real Portuguese music videos and lets you listen to them with the lyrics on the screen, so you can really follow along with the song and the lyrics, which is really, really nice to do. Or if you're feeling a little bit more advanced, it can actually blank words out for you to fill in as the song plays, and you could make that easy or really hard. And the reason that I love this is that the songs are in a good speed, so it's not the really slow dictation that some of the other apps give you. So your ear is getting sharper every single time you play, and you get to learn a little bit about Portuguese culture at the same time, because you'll be getting to know some popular bands and artists. And of course, there's something out there for every taste. So if you like slow, heartbreaking songs, there's definitely plenty of those. Or if you like upbeat party numbers, you'll find them there too. Basically, this is my favorite one, and I give it 4 stars. I have made a whole video on learning with music and some of the brain science behind it, why it works, and also how to do it. So if you're interested, you can check that one out next. App number 6 is Drops, which is purely a vocabulary app, but in a nice visual swipe through way. So if you like the Duolingo style and you find that fun and easy, then this is actually a great alternative for building your vocabulary in European Portuguese. Just once again, keep in mind that it won't help you with forming sentences or holding a conversation, but for a side dish to your main course of however it is you're actually learning Portuguese, this is a really good one to have in your pocket. I thought it was worth mentioning a relatively new one that my students have been testing out as well. It's called JumpSpeak. It does have European Portuguese, which is a good start, and it is built around little conversations with AI. So the stumbling block that we keep coming up against is that the AI pronunciation feedback is not great, so it can't reliably tell you when a word is pronounced wrong, but I do like the way that it is integrating AI into language learning. I think that this is going to get better, and eventually this may be a viable option, but for now it still just doesn't do it for me. But I'd still give JumpSpeak 3 stars, it's worth trying. So what is the one thing that none of these apps can do? They still can't talk back to you. So you could practice on your own all day, but no app can hear you, catch your mistakes, and give you really personalized feedback. What actually gets you speaking is having a real person to listen to you and nudge you in the right direction. As I mentioned before, that should be the main meal, and the apps are just the side dish. And it's not just me saying it. Take my student David. He spent years grinding away on a couple of these apps and he still felt stuck. But just recently, a few weeks ago, he joined our program, and even after a few days, he said he already understands more, especially the pronunciation, and it's better than all that time that he spent on the apps. So here's what I have for you. If you did make it to the end, I do run a free 60-minute workshop called Speak Portuguese Like a Pro, and it is the fastest way to start speaking Portuguese. I will walk you through your pronunciation, the essential grammar that you genuinely need, and how to understand fast spoken Portuguese, because that is not for the faint-hearted. It's the first link in the description, so go and save your seat, and I will see you on the inside. Ciao for now.